Eric, hey, how you doing? All right, thank you so much for kicking things off in our uh, the critique for our part one trial by fire banana first iteration here. So this is a great start. Really good job. Okay, a couple of things we want to take a look at here, and again, I just want to reiterate this is a really good start. I think you've done some things that are pretty wise in terms of letter spacing, and the prompt is that we establish what we consider to be normal letter spacing, which I think for designed students and students just learning typography, normal letter spacing would indicate equal spacing between each letter. Though that's how we kind of attack normal letter spacing, right? And I think that's a pretty common way to think about letter spacing. What we want to do is we want to establish some optical relationships in order to really make the word recognizable as one word and not a series of letters. And that's how letter spacing, word spacing, and paragraph formatting work. We want to make it appear as though it's easy to read and understand in terms of paragraph formatting, but in individual letters and individual words, we want to make the letter spacing such that the word is recognizable as one word as opposed to a series of letters. So we can see that, the example I like to use is this, is if this space right here between the N and the A were wider than the other spaces, the mind would read this and the mind would say banana. And yes, you can see the cadence is stopped. There's a break in the word, which slows down reading, which impedes expeditious communication. Again, that's the reasoning behind a spacing as it starts out with letter spacing, moves on to word spacing, and then paragraph formatting. It's all in the name of good expeditious communication, preventing the viewer from, or the reader from, any unexpected interruptions or breaks. Okay, and that little example there of space that's wider in one word than another word, and how it obstructs the expeditious uh, uh, reading and understanding of the word. So the basic idea here is we don't want the reader to read through something and have to stop mid-word because there's a break there. Whenever there's a break anywhere, that's an anomaly in terms of comparing that to other breaks. So in other words, sorry about that. So in other words, what we're after is a good letter spacing, allowing the viewer to perceive words as one word as opposed to a series of letters. Okay, hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't, because that is a critical factor in understanding spacing, letter spacing, word spacing, and subsequently paragraph formatting. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. So I think the craft is great, really great start here. A couple of things I would recommend is this. You got a good, solid baseline established. That's great. The baseline is, in terms of its relationship with the picture plane, it's perfectly parallel with the bottom of the page. So that's great, meaning it's level. Okay, then right here, this is always problematic, is that the mean line and the cap lines don't typically, without using rulers and straight edges and that, sometimes these aren't perfectly parallel. What you want to shoot with perfectly parallel baseline, mean line, and cap lines. Okay, that will prevent any kind of leaning, slanting, or letters that appear to be larger than others. For example, this A right here seems to be on a slant as we compare it to the other A's. And this A right here appears to be bigger than this A simply because this part of the counter in the lowercase a is below the baseline. So this little area right here makes this letter appear to be bigger than this letter. So we're looking at a little bit of an inconsistency there. So what you want to concentrate on in your second iteration is perfectly parallel baseline, mean line, cap line. Now, you can draw the baseline out, just make sure it's parallel. Then you place a letter, or even maybe trace where two letters would meet so you can establish a perfectly parallel mean line. Okay, then you would trace the cap B to establish a perfectly parallel. What you might recommend is maybe taking the tracing paper, establish your B and the baseline, and then just make a little dot at the top. Then move the paper over, establish your B over here, make a little dot over here, and then connect those dots for a perfectly parallel and level cap line. Does that make sense? Okay. As far as the execution goes, I think we're off to a good start. Good, nice, solid, dark contrast. That's fantastic. It looks like you're using a nice, soft lead. In some areas, the lead might be a little too soft. So right now, my recommendation for this assignment is to take your hard lead, okay, and establish your contour lines. Okay, then take a softer lead and go in and fill it in to establish that good, nice, solid contrast. Okay, as far as the letters of themselves go, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but you really want to shoot for consistency. And I talked about the level um, horizontal lines. Let's talk about level vertical lines. So we can take this. Let me just do something real quick here. I'm going to use this as a straight edge because I just kind of want to show you something here. Right there, we place that right over there. We can see that A right there is on a little bit of a slant. Okay, and then over here, that's the most extreme example, but right there, that's not a true vertical right there either. Right there. So you want to shoot for true horizontals and verticals all the way around. Okay, so that we don't have this appearance of letters slanting. Okay, now let's talk about letter spacing itself. Okay, a general rule of thumb, and I've already described why we letter space, right? But a general rule of thumb is this, is that the widest space between two letters, sans serif letters, would be between two straight letter forms. Okay, so this should be the widest space right here. Then the next, the most narrow space would be between two curved letter forms, and then in between there would be between a straight and a curve. Now notice right now we're not working with diagonals at all. And diagonals kind of add a little bit to the mix here, a little bit of complexity. So right now we're just working with straight and curved letter forms. Again, the most narrow space would be between two curves. The next most narrow space would be between a straight and a curve, and the widest space would be between two straights. Now, you want those to be kind of basic, loose guidelines. You don't want those differences to be really extremely noticeable. So, for example, when I say the widest space should be between the two straight letter forms, that doesn't mean there should be a noticeable gap there. It should all reside within a nice, regular, consistent appearance of the same volume between all letters. And that's what you're shooting for. So basically, if you take a pitcher of water and fill in the negative space in between letters, between the baseline and the mean line, they should consume the same amount of volume. Okay, you may ignore this open counter right here or any open counters in letter forms and just concentrate on this area being the same volume as this area, which would indicate this should come closer to this and this should be wider. Okay, so again, that general rule is the widest area between two straights, then narrow it down for a straight and a curve, and the most narrow between two curves. Okay, so basically that's what we're looking for is that kind of letter spacing. I think this is a really great start. Nice job. But we definitely want to shoot for consistency in between the letter forms in terms of, okay, so this space here between two straights should be the same space between these two straights, right? Conversely, this space, this is the only example of letter combination that includes two curves. So you've got a curve and you got two straights here, you got a curve and a straight here, you got a straight, two straights here, a curve and a straight here, and then two curves here. So just kind of work through it. Keep doing what you're doing. It makes sense. Everything that you've done here makes perfect sense. We just want to kind of establish this kind of, well, right now I think this is too wide right here. Okay, this is too narrow right here, and that would be a good baseline to start with. I should say a good established space point to start with. Okay, so great start, Eric. Let me know if you have any questions at all. I'll be glad to make any clarifications necessary. Thank you very much.